Thank you, Georgina. And we have Andre Rochester with us today. And Andre, I know you introduced yourself, and I'm just going to let you know this is his artwork that he had created behind me. And we will be discussing what's my voice and who's my client tonight with Andre. So Andre, tell us a little bit about yourself and where you are on your journey.
So I've been an artist pretty much since I was a little kid. I mean, as most artists are, we all tap into that creative side of us relatively early in life. Some of us stick with it. Some of us set it down and revisit it again at different points in our life. I think it's something that never leaves you, right? For me, when I say art is a tool for healing, I truly do mean that. My mother was sick growing up. And while I had to care for her between the age of 10 to when I was 16 and she passed away, art was my form of coping. It was my form of expression and getting out the emotions that I was feeling as a kid. And, you know, I had to deal with a lot. And I spent a lot of that time by myself. So, you know, kind of art was the thing that I used to, I guess, not feel alone. People responded to my work. They liked my work, especially during high school, but they didn't necessarily know where the work was coming from, right? And it wasn't until adulthood when I started to really tap into my why and what art truly meant to me, what art has been for me, and how I'd like to use it. I did go to school for art. I went to UConn. I studied illustration at UConn and left for a little while, went on a bit of a hiatus of sorts. I owed a little money, couldn't pay it. And then I came back to school when I was at a point that I could actually afford to return, and I finished my BA in studio art at Charter Oak State College. And I was able to eventually move on to get a master's degree in organizational leadership. And so my journey as an artist has taken me through we'll say kind of a zigzag of sorts, because I've managed to have a corporate career for a while and juggle that along with being a working artist who's active in the arts community. And with that, I'm a working artist, I'm a teaching artist. I'm also an arts administrator. I lead a fellowship here in Hartford for artists of color. And that's actually a recent thing that I've taken, which I'll get into a little bit later. But I've been a professional artist for going on 16 years now. And that's from the time, I count that from the time that I left UConn. I've always been active. I've always wanted to show my work, and I've always wanted to connect with people. And I use that desire to connect with people to further my art career, my art business in particular. So I use it now as a means to create safe spaces to have tough conversations. I've tackled subjects around social awareness and social justice in my work. I've tapped into, you know, sharing my own narrative and creating discussions around the emotion between between viewers and myself through depictions of someone who's on this journey. Right, that journey is kind of vague, but the image that you see there has to come from something, right? And it's that something that connects us all. It's knowing that you've probably been in a situation that felt like what's depicted, and understanding that people are just like you. We know what it is to struggle. We know what it is to have victories and to achieve things. We know what it feels like to not necessarily know where you're going. We all have that time in our life. We're just trying to figure it out. And I've pretty much covered all of that in my work. Lately, it's about a pursuit of happiness and understanding what joy actually means to me, in particular, Black joy. As a Black artist, I'm painting from the lens of a person who has a very, I'll say, a unique cultural experience here in America. And I want to define Black joy for myself. And just as I have depicted images that talk about social justice, Black joy in itself is a form of resistance because it goes against the narrative of struggle that my people have. there's so much focus on all the bad about what happens with African American people in this country. There's not enough focus on the things that we have to actually celebrate. And there are plenty of artists who cover that, the negative side of our experience in the country. I don't necessarily have to be that person. Um, I'll incorporate subjects of that into my work a little bit, but my focus is on understanding that through it all, through that resilience that we've shown, there are still reasons to celebrate who you are. And I think each and every one of you, although you may not be Black, you can certainly understand that there's a reason to celebrate who you are. There are things that happen in life that make all of us great.
Yeah.
And there are things that we have to go through in life that put us in a position to realize our greatness. And as I'm on this pursuit of finding things that make me happy in life, I want to try to depict it as much as possible, because I'm going from a narrative of things I've experienced and went through some years ago, and no longer am in that mental space, to now really understanding what happened to me and really defining that. And I hope that you all can relate to that.
So, Andre, what is it that you're passionate about right now?
A number of things. I'm passionate about helping artists. I run a fellowship. I organize public art projects in the Hartford area. I'm on the board of a nonprofit gallery called Windsor Art Center out here in Windsor, Connecticut, which I've been involved with for about 6 years now. And I'm there solely for the purpose of creating an opportunity for other artists to show their work. The public art project that I'm in the process of closing out right now was a paid opportunity for 30 artists to design work to go on bus stops and electrical boxes along one of the biggest commercial corridors in Hartford, Connecticut. That's
Wow.
all. I did not put my own work in there because I was hired to be the project lead, and I really wanted to be as fair as possible. And I actually set the program up so that the community would then select the artists. So we have neighborhood revitalization zone committees on Albany Avenue. There are two of them, one for the Upper Albany area, one for Clay Arsenal. And their committees, representing the community, of course, made the selections of the 30 artists who participated and were able to design these works. My job as an arts advocate in this case was to ensure that all of the resources were in place for them to get this job done effectively. And it was to make sure that they were represented well as artists throughout this project, and also to ensure that they were paid a fair amount for the work that they were doing. And so that's a recent example of some things that I do to kind of show my passion. I'm passionate, like I said, about just understanding what joy actually means, what happiness really is, and pursuing that for myself, and making sure that anything that I do right now is not only just something that I want to do, but something that pushes me further along on that journey. And the more you pursue happiness, the more you find it. So that is what's really driving me right now.
So it seems like all these platforms, you're, volunteering, you're involved. Is that how you communicate your work to your audience?
Well, I use social media like most people. I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, I'm on LinkedIn. I have my own website. I mean, my work is shared virtually that way, right? So I can reach a broader audience. And then, of course, I exhibit my work. I've done solo shows, and I've done group shows. I've curated shows. So that's another part of what my business involves. It's not just about showing my own work, meaning my visual work, but my work includes curating for other people and consulting and helping other people. There's a service side of what I'm doing.
And then what does voice mean to you as an artist?
Voice for me means a clear understanding of who you are as a creative and effectively expressing it. It means that you have this identity through your work that is recognizable. You can look at any of my paintings and you can tell that I made it. It's not about whether or not I'm good technically. It's not, can I maneuver the paintbrush so that something looks realistic? It's the style in which I make that creation, whatever it is, whether I'm drawing, painting, sculpting, whatever. Um, Being recognizable and having something to say, understanding that you're connecting with your viewer in a way that hits them emotionally as much as it does visually. And you know, the aesthetics of your work, I mean, that's a very subjective thing. But if people feel something, then you know you've connected. It could be good, it could be bad, it could be whatever. If they feel something when they see your work, then you have effectively done your job as an artist. That to me is really having a voice. If there's nothing to be said about the work, then you're in trouble because there's no response. There's nothing. There's no anything. But it's just man, you don't want that.
So can you tell us what the process of voice has been like for you as an artist?
Well, the first step is really learning what you want to do, right, and learning who you are as a person. And that changes throughout life, right? They say every 5 or so years your mindset starts to shift a little, and so the work that you do should also shift a little. Maybe not every 5 years, but you know, you can't keep doing the same thing over and over again. It gets stale and it gets less interesting, right? So um constantly evolving is a part of understanding your voice and knowing your voice, and really getting down to the root of what your work is to be doing, and understanding your purpose, right? Your purpose may not change, but the way in which you execute that purpose might.
Yeah, that's a good one. Your voice does not change, but having that purpose, you know, you have that same purpose, but the way you execute it will change. So
Yeah,
it's like for me going from the restaurant industry to going to the art art industry. It's still the creative process. It's still a purpose
yeah.
that's there, which is helping others or sharing your creative process with others. So yeah, I like that one. What is a client?
A client, the easiest definition for a client is a return customer. A customer is a person that you would like to sell to, and hopefully you make that transaction and they exchange money for your goods or services. A client is a person who likes you so much that they come back and want to support your business.
I like that one. How do you find clients?
That's where the connection piece comes in, right? If you don't make a connection with somebody, they might just buy your print or a bowl or whatever you make, and that's it. Oh, that's just the thing that they bought. It looked pretty at the time, right? That's a customer. Okay. Um, you want to find people who not only like your work, but like you. And I mean that not in the sense of you need to go out and try to impress everybody under the sun. That is not what you should be doing. What you should be doing is essentially finding your tribe. There's a market for everything. It's about finding the people who like the thing that you already do and who like you for you, and who they might share the same mindset as you, or they might be just intrigued about the worldview that you've expressed in your work. That's how you find the client. Think about the interests that you have, and think about whose wall you see your artwork on, or whose living room do you see the items that you sell in, or whose garden do you see this sculpture in? What does their home look like? What are their interests? What interests might you share with one another? What type of connections can you make with them culturally? What do you think you could learn from them, and what do you think you could teach to them? And then you're going to find your client.
So how do you stay authentic with your voice while you're trying to monetize your work?
So business is business. And you price according to the market that you're in and the level of experience that you have. And so it does take some research, right? You have to know what people are actually selling the item that you sell for, and there's usually a pretty pretty broad range, but you can look at the level of skills and the type of materials being used, et cetera, to understand what that product goes for, right? And then you think about, well, what is the audience that you want to tap into, right? Going back to finding your client. Who is the audience that you really want to market yourself to and that you really want to connect with? And that audience that you've defined for yourself is a part of remaining who you are, right? You're not changing anything about who you are in order to tap into that. You're going to find your tribe. You're looking for your people. And when you find those people who share those interests with you, you don't have to change anything. In fact, you'll grow with them. So trying to find a client base that shares a similar worldview, or a client base that shares at least a similar kind of growth mindset that you might. For my work, I understand that I sell an expensive item, but I also make it attainable. Going back to the business side now. Original artwork is not supposed to be cheap. It's a one-of-a-kind item that you spent hours and hours on. You've purchased all these supplies for it. You had to learn for years to get to the point where you were so skilled that you can execute it at whatever level you're at. That should never be shortchanged. That should never be sold at a cheap price because of the amount of labor that goes into you even being able to do the craft in the first place. But you also should consider other ways to make your work accessible, like prints or merchandise. The shirt that I'm wearing right now, this shirt is actually a painting of mine. I've sold the original, but I can still sell reproductions of my work on my shirt. I'll show you. You can see the image there. I can still sell reproductions of that work. I have the copyright to it. Make use of that copyright because you made it, and you can prove that you make it, right? That's why we take pictures of us in process and things like that. You can reproduce that work in whatever way that you want to. You can put it on various merchandise. You can put it on limited edition items that you think that your customer base would enjoy, and they can still have your artwork. It may not be the original, but it's still the image. And if the image is what resonates with those people, then they'll understand and they'll purchase it.
That's a good tip. That was my next question. Do you have any other tips or resources you'd like to share? That was a good tip that you shared. Do you have
Yeah,
any other tips or resources?
yeah. Always find ways to make your work accessible, and be true to who you are. Be true to who you are. That is first and foremost. Don't go out here trying to do gimmicks. If you see a lot of stuff on social media, on Instagram and TikTok in particular, where folks are doing stuff with their artwork because they want to get attention, and it creates a misconception that you have to do these things in order to be successful. The number of followers that you have on Instagram does not equate to the amount of money that you're making for the work that you do. All that means is you have a high level of exposure. And if you don't know how to monetize that exposure, then all you have is a high level of exposure. Okay. It goes beyond how many people are looking at your stuff. Who are you connecting with? How are you connecting with them? And are you making yourself accessible to them? You don't have to be at every event to be accessible. You can go live and talk to those same people that are following you. If you got 20,000 followers or whatever, and you go live, chances are you might have 1,000+ people looking at your live. What is the message that you have to share during that time you have their attention? Let that be the thing that helps you push your business forward. And also go to events in person. It doesn't have to just be your art show either. Make sure that you're supporting your peers. Make sure that you're going to other shows to see who's buying art. That's very important. You need to understand who's out there with that disposable income to purchase the originals and who's looking for the items that you'll reproduce your work on. Get to know those people. Get to know what they, what they're, what drives them, what motivates them to make that purchase. What motivates them to stick around and talk to the artists after the show? What makes them want back in later on down the line and start asking questions? In some ways, you have to be that person too.
Yes. Ask questions. That is, I mean, that's the only way you'll find answers. And as you grow into your craft, you'll have lots and lots of questions in the process, for sure. Is there a connection that you find between your art and other clients that you feel it's important to tap into? I mean, do you always feel that when you are connecting with clients that you have to connect with clients with a purpose, or clients that resonate what you believe in?
I think it's both. For one, time is important, right? You don't get your time back once you've used it. So if you're going to be connecting with someone for an extended period of time, make sure that it does have a purpose. You don't want to waste their time, and you don't want to waste your own time either. So with regards to business, always have a purpose in your meetings with people. But that connection to people outside of business is something that is very important, at least with the people who I found that support my business, and not just monetarily, like the people that I keep seeing at the events that I'm a part of, or the initiatives that I'm involved in. I'm realizing now as a full-time artist for these past 9 months, that people were actually waiting for me.
Wow.
Folks thought I was already a full-time artist for a while, and like they've actually told me this. I thought you already were doing this full-time.
Wow.
And that says something. That means that something I did along the way has resonated with folks to a point that they believe in me so much that they're waiting for me to be available for an opportunity that they have. And so I'm fortunate in that when I made the decision to step away from corporate America and do this full time, that I had spent a great deal of time establishing a connection with people. Some of them I knew I had a connection with, and others waited until I made space for my dream to make themselves known.
That's incredible, Andre. That's really incredible. We have 1 minute left before we go into journaling. Is there anything the group can do for you, Andre, before we get off and start journaling?
What you can do for me is succeed. That's it.
That's so sweet.